What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the overall markets. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. Also, one more thing, guys. This morning, I woke up with a sore throat, so I'm not going to be making this video as long as usual. I want to make this video nice and simple and short, so I don't have to talk as much. But if anything, I'm doing a lot better now compared to the morning. It's just that I have a bit of a headache right now, and I just want to rest very soon. But before that happens, I just want to quickly record this video and give you guys an update about what's going on. So we had this wedge that was drawn out yesterday about how the market was getting very tight. And looking at the setup, SPY not only had a head and shoulders like pattern, but this ended up turning into like an inverse cup and handle. And I mentioned that the odds favored the downside move for the gap fill for 677, if not a move back down to 672. And that's exactly what happened. We came down to that range, and SPY is still showing some weakness as I'm speaking. Also, the QQQ got a big rejection simultaneously, coming down to fill the gap at 617, once again telling us that the market is showing some weakness. So what's going to happen as time goes on? Well, tomorrow we have very important data coming out. As a quick reminder, tomorrow is going to be Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. In the morning, the data is going to be very quiet, but we have the ADP employment change coming out at 8:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then at 9:45 a.m. and 10 a.m., we have important data. That's 15 and 30 minutes after the stock market opens. So at 9:45 a.m., we have the S&P Global Composites and Services PMI data. This will likely cause some volatility. And then at 10 o'clock a.m., we have the ISM Services PMI, business activity, employment, new orders, and prices. This will likely cause a lot of volatility as well, 30 minutes after the stock market opens. So with that coming out, expect a very, very big move because the services sector is very important for the economy. And this data will also give us some insights about inflation because of how new orders are looking. So be ready for some volatility when this data comes out, 15 minutes and 30 minutes after the stock market opens for tomorrow. But one thing that is a little bit more bearish for markets is the fact that AMD and Supermicro are dropping after earnings. The setups did look a bit more bearish to me, and that was the most likely possibility, and that is what's panning out so far. AMD had decent earnings, but they just barely beat on their EPS. Their EPS was at an adjusted $1.16 per share. That's up 28% year over year, but just a little bit above expectations. Revenue is at 8.76 billion, which is not too bad. So decent earnings overall, but the share price is still down because once again, there was some worry about the AI bubble weights being very heavy. And then also a lot of this earnings was like priced in with all the upside we saw. Now, another thing that's not so good is Supermicro is down quite a bit because they ended up missing on their earnings, unfortunately. It's not the best of news for them. Their adjusted EPS was at 35 cents per share, which is below the estimation of 37 cents. Revenue was also at about $5 billion below the $5.83 billion expectation. So, unfortunately for Supermicro, despite decent guidance, the share price is down with the bad earnings and the miss on EPS and revenue. So what do I think is going to happen to the markets? I'm going to talk more about AMD and Supermicro in just a second. I'm just going to make this kind of quick. If you're bullish on SPY, you need to see us reclaim 678 when the data comes out for tomorrow. If we hold above 678 and close above it, we're looking for that gap fill back up to 681 plus. Today we touched the level, but then we rejected. We weren't able to hold there. If we're bearish, you want to see us lose 672. If we can't hold 672, there's going to be a risk of us returning back down to this imbalance. I think that 668 would be tested or below. That's this resistance becoming support for a bigger move down. As of right now, we're showing some weakness, but SPY has not lost 675. We're still holding near there. I would not be surprised if we come down a bit, and then I'm thinking we might actually try to bounce this. They might actually bounce the market with the data instead, because we're already down so much. If we don't hold 672, then I'm going to be concerned for more downside, by the way. But in case we hold 672 to 675, there's a good chance we might actually bounce a little bit and try to get back into the 680s for a temporary move up. I think that's the most likely possibility, but watch your levels just to be safe. If 672 fails us, we could be dipping a lot more, but as of right now, we might sort of like dip and then try to bounce back up to fill this gap. I lean a bit more in favor of that, but we'll see just to be safe depending on the data. Why it might be balanced? Because once again, we're approaching this gap fill down here, and then typically when you fill like two gaps, you do like to rebound. And I also think that this data that comes out is going to cause some volatility, but hopefully we see some buyers defend from here. We'll see if we dip a bit more to fill the gap before we try to bounce. Same thing with the QQQ. If we reclaim 625 and we hold above 625, we could attempt to fill the gap to 629. If we lose 617, we could be dipping towards 612.5. I would not be surprised if we touch 615 to 617. Then we could attempt to rebound back up towards 622, and we'll see how it goes from there. I do think we might be looking for a move like this on the QQQ. Keep in mind, if we lose 617, we could be dipping to like 612 to 615. I do think we could dip another like 1 to 3 points before it tries to bounce, but I'm going to be looking for a rebound for essentially 621 to 625 for a temporary move up on the QQQ. So watch your levels just to be safe, but that's what I'm predicting. On the IWM, we're showing some weakness, but we're holding support simultaneously, meaning that if we don't hold 240, expect us to dump to fill the gap around 237. If 240 fails, let's look for a rug pull. If we hold 240, we might touch it. We could try to bounce back up for essentially 244. So there is some hope for a small bounce if we hold 240. Watch that very closely. We either dump to 240 and bounce, or we dip to 237 and then bounce. Maybe I would like to see a dip to fill the gap first before it tries to bounce. What's good is that ES filled its gap and now it's testing 6,800. So 6,750 to 6,800 is going to be our main support zone. And we're going to see if we bounce around here. We're forming some wicks here. So it might try to rebound for 6,850. If we lose 6760, we're going to be a lot more bearish. But I believe that we're going to try to base between 6750 and 6800, just like this, before it tries to rebound for our EMAs right here around 6860. On NQ, one thing that's good is that NQ is like it's dropping, right? But there's this gap down here which has gotten filled. We filled the gap to 25,500 as we predicted yesterday. This would eventually happen. So now I would like to see us bounce like near this level between 25,400 and 25,500. We should be forming some kind of base here, and I think we might be looking for a bounce for 25,800 again, because we already filled the gap. Now, if we lose this level right here, if we end up losing where this supply zone, which is now going to become our support zone, if we lose this zone right here, of course, we could remain more bearish, but I think that we might not touch it. We might actually just try to bounce from here since we already filled the gap. So we'll see, just to be safe, if we dip and then bounce. Bitcoin is trying to hold 100,000. That's going to be a psychological area. If that holds, we're looking for a rebound for 104,000 plus. On Tesla, we're technically on an uptrend, but we're at support right here near 444. If we lose 440, yes, we could be dumping to fill the gap down here around 434. But if we hold 444, there is still hope for Tesla to bounce back up to 455. Hopefully, we try to hold support and bounce. We'll see, just to be safe. On Nvda, we have a double top leg structure. Notice that Nvidia is dropping with the earnings that came out from AMD. We have support at 196. We need to hold this. If we don't hold this, we dump a lot more back down to the lower 190s. We also have support right here at 194. So we got to hold 195 to 196. We got to hold here to rebound. If we don't, it could continue to fall. We might see a small bounce near there before it tries to continue to dip. Appl is trying to rebound a little bit. It's showing some life. As long as we're above 269, we could be looking for essentially 272.5 for a temporary move up. Netflix is consolidating. It's showing some weakness, not really doing much. Could retest 1,050. MSTR could try to rebound for essentially 253. AMD is currently dropping, and then keep in mind, on the daily time frame, we have a gap to fill down here. We're currently at 242. The gap is all the way down towards 235, so that makes me suspect it may continue to fall another 7 points before it tries to bounce. ARM may retest 158, so we'll see if it bounces off that. PayPal could retest 65 before it tries to bounce. Coinbase has a slight bullish divergence. We're going to see if this tries to retest 315 or not, but overall it's on a downtrend. Amazon is showing some weakness to me. It's making lower highs, so it could be dipping towards 245. Looking at Meta, we have a falling wedge, but as of right now, there's no sign of a bounce yet. It ended up testing my 625 targets, and we need to bounce around here for 640. It might try to bounce as we have a falling wedge, so we'll see if that ends up being the case. Google has a gap to fill. As long as we're above 278, we could try to bounce. If we don't hold that, we're looking for 275, so we'll see if we rebound. And then Microsoft has 515 as our resistance alongside 520, so we'll see if we bounce or not from there. Anyways, the VIX also gapped up quite a bit. It's consolidating. We're going to see if it bounces a bit before it starts falling to fill this gap. That could be a sign the market's going to bounce in. So we'll see just to be safe. I still think SPY and the QQQ could dip a little bit more. We could be coming down to fill this gap around 672 to 670 on SPY. A few more points lower before we try to bounce. That's what I think is the most likely possibility. But in case we don't get the bounce, be prepared for further downside. All right, so we might dip a little bit more on SPY to fill this gap. Same thing with the QQQ. We might be looking for 617 for the gap fill. If it doesn't hold, I'm looking for like 615 to 612, but then we should be bouncing near there, in my opinion, as the most likely possibility. Of course, watch your levels just to be safe. And we're going to see what happens with the data coming out at 9:45 and 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, 15 minutes and 30 minutes after the stock market opens. So we'll see how it goes. I do favor that there might be a little bit more downside for us, and then we could be looking for a bounce. So keep that in mind. Just for reference, look at my arrows in the beginning. I drew out how we might be dipping a bit more before we see some kind of rebound move. That's the most likely possibility for now. And like I said before, we were expecting downside as the most likely possibility to start off November, but this is nothing more than an end of the year buying opportunity because I think the market will be breaking all-time highs again by the end of December. And even in November, I think as we approach the end of November, we're going to be bouncing as well. But my point is, there's going to be a lot of upside coming. The market's going to rally really hard to finish off the year. And I think that this is going to be a big opportunity for those out there who are interested. Not financial advice when I say that. And I just thank you all so much for listening. Please have an awesome rest of your guys' days. I'll get some rest and hopefully I'm better within a day or two. And I just wish you all nothing but the best moving forward. Thank you for listening and peace out.